Thank you, Suzanne. Yes, today we're going to take you through W045 BeST, and this stemmed from a research project, RP993, which started a couple of years ago to look to demonstrate the benefit of SuDS and to help clients, practitioners develop a business case from when we potentially look to use SuDS or a combination of SuDS and other drainage measures. So I think it's probably just important that we just start off by recognising and thanks to our funders. Without them, this project at CIRIA wouldn't have been able to go forward. And also thanks to all those who served on the project steering group, who helped steer the project over the last couple of years, our industry testers, and those who have provided case studies through the project and allowed us to then use the tool as we to have some material to actually support the launch of the tool and guidance. So today, just to give you a bit of an overview, we'll very briefly touch on the background to the project, kind of why we're looking at maybe taking a step change in using SuDS. And then start to talk more around the background to the tool itself, how to use the tool, a very quick kind of dance through some parts of the tool, and then briefly show some results from the example, from one of the examples. So I think firstly, if you just set a little bit of background, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with the challenges that we face going forward in terms of managing stormwater. But why should we really change our approach, which has served us so well for the majority of times? Well, we know that we're facing quite a challenge in terms of managing flooding going forward, and particularly when we look at some of the suggested climate change uplifts that we will see on rainfall. We have our challenges in terms of continuing to improve the quality of our urban watercourses and the potential or the impacts from urban diffuse pollution. We also have the challenge or opportunity for us to connect with water on the surface. And what we really mean by that is by bringing water and sustainable drainage, and particularly of the vegetative kind, to the surface, we can create other benefits in terms of amenity and health and biodiversity. We have the challenges of legislation and planning. Things changed a little bit back in April, and we will continue to probably actually face a shift in how we look to actually manage water going forward. We also have quite a significant challenge in our existing networks of future population growth. So how can we ensure that our current networks are resilient enough to be able to take extra increase in flows? And then finally, there's the whole livability aspect. Can we improve our urban areas and our quality of life while we also maybe look to actually manage surface water? So this is really changing from a predominantly piped below ground system to a far more better balance of sustainable drainage and air grey infrastructure. So how can we change? Well, actually part of this is then using sustainable drainage systems to actually manage the impacts from development both on new and retrofit, and that can really hit some real key benefits. and these are four of the particular benefits that have been recognised for some time, and this is actually an illustration that comes from the new SuDS manual, which CIRIA will be releasing later on this year. It's well worth keeping your eye out for when that actually comes online, probably late September, early October. So what's possible? Well, across our urban landscapes, where we're either undertaking new development, redevelopment, or needing to manage existing flows, we can look to move some significant greening, both on in public, private property, ranger scales in terms of private property, to help actually manage stormwater better. This won't happen overnight, but we do need to recognise that we need to start somewhere and start to realise actually the changes that we can make. But one of the big challenges that we're often faced is how do we really value the wide benefits, the wider benefits that many forms of sustainable drainage can actually bring us. And these are just some of those benefits up on the screen at the moment. So the key challenge is how do we actually value them? We've often done more qualitative approaches, but a question mark on whether you fully believe or want to go down the route or not. Monetizing the benefits is often a way that then it helps decision makers work out what they should do. So a little bit of background. We've been faced for actually several years now this quest for more bang for buck. Can we do more for less? And I think that's always been a real key challenge. So recognizing the wider benefits that can come from different forms of drainage and different solution types is really, really important. We know from retrofitting and looking to retrofit more sustainable drainage, you clearly have to undertake a lot of community engagement and engagement both in the community, but a wide range of stakeholders. And there's often the question, who should pay for different parts of drainage, or who should pay for the benefits? So one of the key things is when you're looking to understand what other funding streams is actually who you should approach. And if we can understand who we can approach, and maybe to either have contributions in kind or to support in terms of maybe ongoing operation and maintenance, having a clear structure to actually do that really helps. Is becoming more and more commonplace, and we're seeing numerous schemes now across the country where water companies and local authorities and the Environment Agency are working together to manage different kinds of rainfall in terms of the size and magnitude of that rainfall. We have the constant question of being able to compare costs versus benefits. And so what are those benefits? And there are some tools that do already exist. So for example, there's the green infrastructure, the Northwest Valuation Toolkit, which is very much focused around green infrastructure, and often just those individual components of green infrastructure. We have something similar with the Center for Neighborhood Technology from the USA, which again looks to value green infrastructure for various different components. And we've had some quite big different studies done across the US, UK, for example, which look at what are the benefits from adopting maybe a green infrastructure or a SuDS or a low impact development approach, and An example which is commonly quoted is one which was in Philadelphia, which looked at two options, one which had a kind of 50% low impact development option and a tunnel option. And the size of the benefits that would actually come out from those were significantly different. And even if you withdrew the heat stress and mortality element, which accounted for a big chunk of the benefit cost for the 50% low impact development option, you still saw significantly more benefits when going down this kind of more green infrastructure approach. So all that really started to actually culminate in the development of initially the research project, and then following from that research project, the benefits of SuDS Tool, or BeST as we've shortened that to. So this work has been completed by Dr. Bruce Horton, an environmental economist, and myself, along with Professor Richard Ashley of EcoFutures, and Elliot Gill of CH2, along with a wide number of colleagues from MWH and CH2 covering various different disciplines. The real aim of the project is to support practitioners and clients to evaluate the multiple benefits of SuDS, or as it turned out, actually any drainage option, and wherever possible, determine the kind of estimated monetary benefit that you would see from an option being put forward. So in terms of a tool, there's some key aspects to it. So firstly, we've looked to build this on available evidence, where we assessed over 400 values from hundreds of papers to actually look at how robust we felt it was to be able to actually adopt and actually use those values in a value transfer approach. So that's taking the value from a particular example and transferring that to the example that you're actually faced with, where you have to then actually consider the context of that transfer. And we followed an impact pathway approach to how an intervention will lead to a series of changes which would then actually lead to an impact or that benefit, or in sometimes a disbenefit. Within the tool, we've developed a structured assessment approach that logically walks the user through the assessment. So actually, and as you'll see a little bit later on, it follows a very kind of follows this kind of structured path in terms of doing some initial screening and kind of considering things in a qualitative manner, before then looking to kind of quantify and monetize and then actually look at the results. We felt it was important that the tool considers confidence. The data that we use, we know can vary. So we wanted to ensure that we were not just being the most optimistic that one could be when considering what the benefits of a particular option would be. So we use confidence values that allows the user to just very simple bandings of 25, 50, 75 and 100% on both the quantity, so that value there, as well as the monetary value. We then look to, and so as I already mentioned, we go through this process of both kind of qualifying and where possible, and I'll come on to the benefits which we can, or which we believe that we've been able to help users actually quantify in a moment. But it's really important to understand that this is a tool where the user needs to consider their own context and how that applies with the values, and there's information in the guidance to support the user to do that, to then actually come up with both the quantities and selecting the appropriate monetized value. So it's not a black box, and it does require the user to think. And we feel that's actually really important when actually looking to assess and estimate potential benefit numbers. The tool also allows us to compare drainage options. So one of the things that we were looking to do within the tool was to also make it quite user-friendly, produce some outputs that people can easily pick up, copy and paste, and actually bring across and use in reports. So there's a number of automated graphs that actually appear. And if you're looking at more than one drainage option, which you may well do, we also provided the ability to take out values from using the tool each time for each option, and then actually compare them in a simple way. The tool also encourages people to record down evidence of the numbers and where they've got information from. So in the future, if you go back, there's either a reference to another document, or there's the ability to actually enter in text directly into the tool. So the tool includes a wide range of benefits, and the ones which can be monetized in the tool currently are shown in the green with ticks. There's a number which we felt was actually far harder and more robustly to be able to put some values against in red, and then there's one for enabling development, which is a very kind of more specific case, which is why that's actually in amber. And so they're the available benefits to date that can be used, that are included within the tool. And we initially kind of set this out actually just using an ecosystem services kind of a framework, which is 4 kind of key categories, which you can see in the bottom left there. But we also actually started to realize that actually people would like to see results in actually different kind of contexts. So we've looked to kind of transfer these benefit categories that practitioners and users will easily understand, and map them to a triple bottom line approach as well. So BeST has a suite of outputs attached to it. There's W045A, which is the evaluation tool. So that's the main tool itself, which is Excel based. We built it in Excel purely from a functionality perspective to allow quite quick updates in the first instance. In the long term, whether that was to change, we'll actually see how the tool develops. It's been designed to be functional in 2010 and 2013 onwards, and that was purely from a functional perspective within Excel. And along with the evaluation tool, you also have W045B, which is the comparison tool, and that just simply allows you to actually bring in individual evaluations, so you can actually then compare those summaries. We have W045C, which is the technical guidance, and so that's a document which you can download along with all these other components off the web, which talks you through in a bit more detail in terms of how to use the tool, and particularly when you come to assess the benefits, key things for you to consider around each benefit category. For example, about double counting, or where the values have actually come from which are in the tool. And then finally we have the user manual, which is a very simple user manual to firstly introduce you to how to use the tool and just take you through kind of step by step each some of the key worksheets that you can then actually fill in and actually move through the tool. So I'll now just provide a little bit of an overview in terms of how the tool actually works. So the process kind of flowchart that you see on screen now pretty much kind of takes you the route through that you would take when actually undertaking an evaluation. So we have project inputs, which is there to capture some key information about the project, potential funders, stakeholders, size of the area, and the cost of the scheme or option being proposed. You then have some screening questions, and when we look at the screening questions, we use these to help us consider what are the potential benefits that we are looking to actually assess. So hopefully, so you should be able to see on screen, this is a cutout from the tool. So for different impact types, we've provided some questions for you to think about. It's not exhaustive, but some questions for you to think about whether your proposed option will actually make a difference for each of the kind of different benefit categories. And if you think that it does, you can then choose to open the impact sheet by selecting yes or no. You can record down further information in the orange box on the side, and then when you've completed your screening, you can click the Enable Pages button at the top, and that automatically then opens up which benefits that you want to consider. And it's important to actually do that so you can actually fill in the benefit information. So once we've completed some screening questions, depending upon the benefits that you've looked at, you may need to fill in some of the SuDS used. The tool itself looks to consider the overall performance of the drainage and the SuDS. Therefore, it's only for certain benefit categories that you actually need to specifically say the SuDS that you're actually using in your scheme. Otherwise, it's all around about the overall performance. And I think, and we looked at this in quite a lot of detail, and we came as that as being a really important conclusion to actually go down that route, purely because if you look at a number of the benefit categories, and if you say take flooding for example, understanding the performance of a single rain garden or a swale on its own doesn't necessarily actually create the benefit around flood risk, but it's the overall design of probably a number of components together that actually makes the difference. So once we've actually undertaken the screening then actually helps you look at what potential stakeholders might be interested in this piece of work and in the outputs that actually come from that. And so within the tool, we've linked the benefits that you initially screen to highlight whether there's maybe a strong potential, a modest potential, or low potential that both stakeholders may be interested, either purely from a interested perspective, maybe wanting to work together, or some may actually be from a funding perspective. And we've broken this up into different kind of, categories of stakeholders, and I said, when you select the benefits from your screening questions, that then actually just highlights the benefits on the left-hand side and blanks out the other benefits, so you can clearly see who might be the types of organisations that you actually want to go and actually maybe have a conversation with once you've actually completed an initial assessment. We then have a double counting check, which is just a very simple graph that just kind of flags up where you may see double counting. And double counting is a really important aspect when we're assessing benefits, that we don't count some of those benefits effectively twice. And the guidance provides a good steer in terms of where that may take place. So as you kind of assess each benefit, it's well worth looking into the guide in chapter 4, which will give you that information as well in a lot more detail. But we then come to the main part of the tool, which is actually looking at the benefits and impacts. And the tool itself applies some very consistent approaches, both in terms of its kind of format. So we use green with a bold dotted line for cells which automatically update with information. Orange are cells that the user needs to input information, and blue cells are those which the user selects information with. And we've kept that consistent all the way through the tool to try and actually make that nice and easy for people to get more familiar with it. We then also have, when we're looking to quantify the benefits, we always have a first section, which is where the user may have already undertaken their own assessment, and feel that's important that the user can actually include that rather than just using something bespoke within the tool. So the tool not only helps the user undertake an evaluation, but if you've already looked at some benefits on their own, you can bring those numbers into the tool, so everything can be pulled together. So in this example, which is water quality, WQ01, section WQ001, that provides you with the opportunity to put in your own numbers in terms of the present value that you've determined, and you can then apply your certainty, your confidence value, sorry, to both the quantity and the monetary values, which then actually comes up with the present value post-confidence. Same thing then actually applies then in section WQ2, but actually now in this section here on water quality, you have some further drop downs that allows you to help actually compute what the potential benefit is to water quality. And water quality, as an example, focuses around improvements to watercourses and requires the user to estimate the length of watercourse that would be improved. And this is quite a challenge, I think, and the guidance again looks to provide some support to the user to help them actually work through that. So when you look to pull all the benefits together, I should probably just mention there are 2 values libraries that we use in the tool. There's a values library which contains information around some of those individual benefits with the monetized value, whether it be for water quality or a certain aspect around amenity or health, which is moved into 2013 prices, along with the reference of the source of the information, so someone can always go back and actually look in more detail if they so wish. There's also a yearly values library, because the tool allows you to estimate the benefits up to the year 2120. We've currently looked at just over 100-year time period ahead, and so that's important when you're looking at maybe values for carbon or energy, So we take forecast values into account, which change often year on year. And it's worth just actually highlighting this point, that it's important that when you look at each individual benefit, you actually highlight when you expect the benefit to actually start, because the tool specifically takes into account the start year rather than being initially from year one. So, for example, if you were looking to build quite a large scheme and some elements of the scheme wouldn't either be mature for 2 to 3 years or weren't going to be built for 2 to 3 years, it allows you to actually just hold back off and say when that benefit will actually start. All these results are brought together into summary tables, and then they come into summary tables which kind of summarize all the information which is around the start year, the end year, the present value before confidence, after confidence, the confidence values. And so there's a summary table which gives you which summarizes every single benefit and kind of sub-benefit, and then that comes into and then there's a final kind of summary sheet which is either ecosystem services in this example here, or in terms of triple bottom line, and that then actually produces a series of graphs. So there's a summary table. An example of that is actually shown here, where you can see for the different ecosystem services, we've then got those impacts which are grouped within there, and it then takes the present value before confidence and after confidence, and it also allows you to also brings in the sensitivity assessment, which is included within the tool. Which allows the user to change some of the confidence value, so you can look at a potential low and a potential high value that might actually come out from the option as well. The tool also contains some user-defined values, and they're quite important because you may have related your specific context some specific examples or benefits that you want to bring in that you may already have a monetary value for, and so the tool has allowed you to bring up to 5 user-defined benefits into the tool that can then kind of contribute to the overall results. The tool then automatically creates a series of graphs. These are just an example of some of the graphs here. On the left, you have an example which shows the distribution of benefits before confidence is applied, and then on the right you have the distribution of benefits post confidence. And there's a series of graphs, and these are automatically exported in the button in the top right on the image behind that you can see into a Word document. Which then just makes it easier to pick up those graphs and put them into separate reports and that. So that's very quickly a look through the tool. I'll just spend a couple of minutes just running for a very shortened example of a case study that was undertaken with Yorkshire Water, and this was to look at 2 combined sewer overflows that were spilling combined flow to a watercourse, and the main aim here, or the first aim here, was to actually reduce the spills to help actually clean up the watercourse, and also look to help actually improve the environment for white-pawed crayfish. And so, as the red boundary shows the areas upstream of the 2 CSOs, which are the 2 red dots, and we looked at 4 options on this. So we looked at a conventional option, which was to store water just at the combined sewer overflows, so to essentially stop them spilling. We looked at an option which was to not only store water at the overflows, but also help lower the water level throughout the rest of the network to help manage predicted flooding, which gave a similar performance to option 3 and option 4. Option 3 was to retrofit SuDS in public spaces, and option 4 was to retrofit SuDS both in public and private spaces. And this screening, which we've summarized in a table here, shows which ones kind of had a positive benefit indicated by a tick, which ones potentially had a negative benefit or could cope far less, with a potential impact by the crosses, and then very little change is shown by the dashes. So we look to assess those 4 options and then the benefits attached to those 4 options. And an example around option 3 generated these values here. So you can see for the present value before confidence applied, had a present value benefit of £28 million, or nearly £29 million, and had a significant net present value. However, after we'd applied the confidence, which may be a more true reflection, we felt, of actually where the benefits were, then you can see actually the cost and the benefits were far more similar. We undertook this for each of the 4 options. And then we've brought all those values into the comparison spreadsheet. So this is a comparison tool, which is W045B. And this is an example of one of the graphs that would actually come out from that tool. And so you can see the blue represents the scheme present cost. The red represents the value of the benefits, and then the green represents the overall net present value. And so we're able to use this to actually see that. So the cheapest was the conventional solution on its own, but actually the size of the benefits was also quite small. So from a net present value, you had a negative value. And it was the SuDS in public spaces which actually came up with that slightly positive overall net present value, whereas the conventional plus, which provides some similar hydraulic benefits to the SuDS public in terms of managing flooding, didn't provide other benefits and also cost a little bit more. But one of the challenges here, which then is one of the reasons why we're then trying to actually look at these benefits, is so would you then actually which kind of option here would you choose depending upon how quickly you want to maybe meet a certain target. So that's a very quick run through the tool in a little bit over half an hour. So just really want to wrap up with a few key points here. I think it's important to remember that a pound does not necessarily equal a pound. It's an indication. So we should never be really looking to the nearest pounds and pence when we're doing a benefit assessment, but it gives a good indication to the potential size of what that benefit will be. The tool, we believe, really helps to identify what the wider benefits are, and that's really important because we need to be able to then go and have conversations with different people, and that may then actually lead to further funding opportunities. The tool helps us be able to identify the potential level of the benefits and comparatively the level of the benefits, and therefore who might benefit. And I think one of the final things that I'll just finish up with today is the tool helps you understand which might be what we might call the dominant benefit, and which one you may wish to go and then spend a little bit more effort to then ensure that you're comfortable with the appropriate monetary value or quantities that have actually been set against that, particularly if they become a really important funding aspect. So the tool is freely available. It can be downloaded from www.susstrain.org/resources/best.html. All 4 components are on the website already, and if you have any questions about the tool or any queries, then you can email best@susstrain.org for more information. So I'd like to thank you all for diligently actually listening today, and we'll now attempt to take any questions if anyone has any. Now you should be able to unmute yourself, hopefully, and ask a question, but if not, if you look to raise your hand, we'll then try and actually unmute you. So by the silence at the minute, that either means that no one can hear me or there's no questions. But please put your hand up or just unmute yourself if you have a question there.
Hi Chris, there's a couple have come up now under the questions, the written.
Oh, right, okay.
So the first one comes from Paul Simmons. Is it possible to release data on a real scheme where options were assessed?
Well, thank you for that question, Paul. Yes, we will shortly be uploading 3 case studies onto the SuStrain website, where we will, which not only shows the tool in use, but also then contains a short summary as well, which just provides a little bit more background behind each case study. So yes, those. So we are planning to release 3 of those as examples, and hopefully a 4th one as long as we get the permission from the client. So thank you for that.
Then the next one down is a question from Max Hislop. Has the tool been used in a real scenario yet?
Yes, we've been applying the tool on actually one of the case studies in some further work that we as MWH have actually been undertaking, and so we're very much looking to actually use this rather than doing some of the bespoke survey, some of the bespoke assessments that we've been undertaking in the past. We've also been talking with some of our other clients who are now actually keen to use this as a consistent way for a number of projects being undertaken by a number of consultants to go and actually assess the wider benefits that may come up, and this across a series of service water management plans.
Okay, and then the next one is from Nick Alburn. Can climate change estimations be forecasted within the tool? Hello, Chris.
Oh, now, Suzanne, I don't know if it's just your voice broke up there a little bit.
Right. A question from Nick Alburn saying, can climate change estimations be forecasted within the tool?
Well, that's a really good question, actually. Within the tool, we've currently got space for, but not currently put in yet, something called flexible infrastructure, and it's a piece of work which we're currently working on at the moment to see if we can actually allow for a potential or a specific benefit around flexible infrastructure. it's been widely researched, written and reported about sustainable drainage is far more flexible than maybe piped systems themselves. But to date, it's been very difficult to try and actually account for that properly. So we are, if things kind of go to plan, later on in the year, we would be trying to actually bring something in specifically around the flexible infrastructure piece. What I would say is, though, when you're looking at why, if you're looking at, say, climate change in general, in particular around some of the hydraulic aspects, for example, although you could apply that to many of the other benefits, is the user can actually undertake that estimation firstly around quantity, and then look to actually bring that into the tool. And there's a number of ways in which you do that. So, for example, the tool allows you to have like a baseline case and your proposed case. So one way that you can actually have this is your baseline is your current starting position. So if it's a retrofit scenario, your baseline case would be, this is what is actually happening now, and your option initially might be, this is actually what, if I put in my SuDS and my intervention, this is the kind of benefit that you'll see. You could, of course, then look at uplift on rainfall and understand how that then actually performs, and then again bring those values into the tool. So it won't automatically bring that in, but the user can actually bring those values into the tool. So a key thing is about actually having that level of flexibility, we believe, which the tool actually allows for people to actually bring in different options there.
Okay. And we've got 3 more questions. I think that might bring, well, we are over time already, but I'll ask these last 3 questions, Chris, and see how we get on. Leanne has apologized that if she missed it, but where did you get your cost data from?
Okay, it's a good point, Leanne, and I probably wasn't clear enough on this from the start. So costs, we ask, so this tool was specifically around the benefits. So for costs, and if I've understood you, Leanne, properly here, the cost of the scheme is brought in by the user using appropriate ways to cost what that drainage option would actually be. The monetary values, though, just in case you were referring to the monetary values, they actually refer to, so they actually come from research articles and surveys and evaluations that are often then actually which we then do a value transfer approach to actually bring those values into the tool. But costs themselves come from the user.
Okay, and then the second last one is from Tim O'Brien asking, what's the difference between the flooding benefits and flooding and climate change benefits, which are on separate lines of the tool?
Well, Tim, you'll have spotted one of the flooding, which is fully encased within the tool. We actually used as part of that example there to actually capture flooding and climate change benefits within some of the values there as one of our user-defined values, and we did that purely because when we were comparing the 4 different options on that example there that I just run through, the conventional drainage and the conventional plus option couldn't cope as well with the increased rainfall, both from a flooding perspective and also from a water quality perspective in terms of the volume of water that started to be spilled from the system. So we actually use that as a very simple way to actually account for the performance then of the SuDS, which was far more resilient to cope with the extra rainfall.
Okay, and the final question from Brian Cafferkey is an interesting one, Chris. He says, good afternoon. Based on the example we are saying the cheapest option gave the gave the least benefit in terms of the 4 core values, if I have understood it correctly. I appreciate this as an example, however convincing a developer would be a challenge. I assume some of the values can be amended if we have more accurate data for specific sites.
Well, thank you, Brian. No, I mean, it's a very good question. I think it's a challenge that can be faced, particularly from the new development side. So I think there's a couple of aspects there. So firstly, the example I showed was actually from a retrofit example, which and the conventional was significantly cheaper purely because it only had needed two interventions at 2 very specific sites at those 2 red dots. As soon as you look to provide a more similar performance, which was the conventional plus, in terms of hydraulic performance in the network, you actually saw the cost being the same as the SuDS, or very similar to the SuDS costs. So actually, in that example, if you were to look to want to create the same hydraulic performance, then the SuDS actually came out a little bit cheaper. But I do think I think one of the important aspects I think that this tool can actually help us understand is will the potential drainage options that we propose create the wider benefits? And if those benefits were matching up with some benefit to what the developer then might also usually see, and so for example, and an anecdotal story really has remained with me from a workshop that we actually had 2 to 3 years, probably 2 years ago, early doors on this project, where someone actually stood up and actually shared that someone had actually built some initial SuDS on the site, and it was actually looking very, very attractive going into the site. And the developer was saying, my houses are selling like hotcakes. I just don't understand why. And it was kind of pointed out it could well actually have something to do with a very attractive opening that you actually have coming into the site, where you pass through a very attractive kind of wetland and landscaped area, which people could probably actually, which people clearly liked, and that was actually really helping to actually sell houses. I think one of the key things, if you look at the benefits that you might actually indicate here, is will those benefits strike a chord with the developers? And if they do, could they then see some actual value actually coming out from this going forward? And I think that's clearly, that can be quite a challenge for those of us working with developers who can't actually see that potentially using SuDS, and we can all appreciate that there are some challenges and existing demands could actually bring actually benefits both in the long term, which is what we're really driving for here, but maybe also in the short term to them.